Alright, my friends, so what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be dividing fractions, and I'm sure you've divided fractions long ago when you first even learned about fractions back when you were little guys in junior high, maybe. Um, and what Nothing much has changed about the rules. The only thing I'm doing is just taking it a notch up now and putting some variables in there now, okay? So, a long time ago, a good friend of mine had given me this way to kind of remember what we're supposed to do for dividing fractions, and I put the phrase right up here, right where the arrow is, and basically it's keep, change, flip. What does that mean? That means you're going to keep the fraction, change the division sign to multiplication, and then flip that fraction, the one that's directly to the right of the division sign, flip that to the reciprocal so that it switches places. Whatever's on the top goes to the bottom, whatever's on the bottom goes to the top. Okay, so keep, change, flip. And the key thing to remember here is you want to only you only want to flip the fraction that's directly to the right of the division sign, okay? Only to the right of the division sign. So let's go ahead and start with looking at some examples. So here in number 1, I have 2pq divided by 8p5q over 5q. And what you want to do here is you want to check and make sure now that we know how to factor and stuff, the first thing you want to do is to check all 4 things. So the first numerator, the second numerator, the first denominator, and second denominator. So check those 4 places and make sure you can't factor. Okay, if you can factor something, you need to factor everything first, because your goal is you want to cancel stuff out. Remember, just like what we did before, you have to cancel things out in a top and bottom combination, so you can't do like the 2 numerators cancel out or the 2 denominators, so you've got to do a top and bottom combination. So let's check our 4 places here. So I have a 2p, an 8p, a q, and a 5q. Looking at those 4 places doesn't really look like there's anything to factor there. Okay, so what you do is let's go there, keep, change, flip. So we keep the first fraction the way it is. So 2p divided by q. Change the division sign to multiplication, and then flip this last fraction. Okay, now all we're going to do is we're just going to cancel stuff out, okay? So looking at these, because none of the places have a plus or minus separating the variables, so this is just like a 2 and a p right next to each other. It's not 2 plus p or 2 minus p. Because they're just neighbors like this and stuck together, we can just cancel stuff out. We don't have to worry about our rules for canceling things out. So remember, it has to be a top and bottom combination. So looking here, I can get the 2 and the 8 can go and cancel, and what's left over is a 4, right? The p's can completely go away. The q's can completely go away, and all I'm left with there is a 5. Okay, so what do I have left over? Looking at the top, you multiply across, so it's basically when everything cancels out, this is really like a 1. So I have a 1 times 5 is 5. Everything is gone here on the first denominator, so we just call this a 1. 1 times 4 is 4. So final answer for this is 5 over 4. Okay, let's try number 2 and let's see. So remember, first thing you want to do is let's try and factor if we can. So looking at my first numerator, can I factor this? Yeah, right. Remember, check first if you can pull out a GCF, and this definitely does have a GCF. It has a GCF of 5. So you pull out a 5, and what's left is t minus 2. Looking at its bottom, nothing to factor there. It's just a t minus 5, so I'm just going to rewrite it. So I've kept the first fraction except factored. I'm going to change the division to multiplication, and then looking at this last fraction, there's nothing really to factor there. So let's flip it. Okay, so I've kept, changed, and flipped, and let's start canceling things out here. So remember, you have to have a top and bottom combination. And so looking at this, your gut reaction might tell you here in the second fraction to maybe take this 2 and that 2 and cancel it out. Remember, there's that royal rule. You cannot do that, you guys, because since this 2 on the bottom has a minus sign in front of it, see how the minus is joining the t and the 2? Since they have that minus sign in between, you can't cancel those 2 out because they're kind of stuck together. The only way you can cancel them out is if you have another t minus 2 somewhere. Like so, right here. See how I have a t minus 2 and it's being multiplied to the 5, how the 5's on the outside? This t minus 2 isn't, looks exactly like this guy, so these two guys can cancel out because they're the same, and they're both a t minus 2. It's not just like this 2 that's by itself without the t. So you have to have the t, you have to have the minus, you have to have the 2 to cancel them out, okay? So now that we have that, is it okay, do you think, that I can cancel out this 5 and that 5? Okay or not okay with that? Canceling this 5 and that 5 out. It's not okay, alright, because again, same situation. This 5 has a minus t, a minus sign and a t next to it, it's attached to it. This 5 is just a little loner 5, so it can't. So this is as simple as we can get. So we multiply going across. 5 times 2 is 10. On the bottom, t minus 5, there's nothing left here, we say it's a 1. T minus 5 times 1 is t minus 5. And that's all we can do, okay? So stressing, this 10 and this 5 cannot simplify to 2 because the 5 has a minus t next to it, okay? So that's all you can do with this. It's done. Alright, my friends, let's go ahead and move on, and let's look at number 3, okay? First thing to do is let's check if we can factor anything. So check all of your 4 places and factor if you can. And so there is definitely a lot of factoring that can happen with this one. So you'll need to brush up. You guys need to get your factoring skills down here so that you can recognize this and get your and factor quickly here. So looking here at number 3, I have y squared plus 3y minus 10. That definitely probably could factor. My gut tells me to use the box trick, so the y squared is like 1 and 1. 10 could be 5 and 2. Minus sign here is in the second, so that tells me I'm going to have a plus minus opposite signs, right? So let's see first if this is a good combination. 1 times 2 is 2. 1 times 5 is 5. You subtract those two guys because remember this back sign's a minus, so you subtract them. And do you get the middle number? You sure do. Okay, so which one's bigger? Which one's going to get the plus? The 1 times 5 gets the plus. Okay, so that gets the plus. This one gets the minus. Remember, you group them going across. So I have y plus 5, y minus 2. Okay, so that's what I get for that first fraction on the top. On the bottom, easy, difference of 2 squares, right? So difference of 2 squares, remember, is this one. You take the square roots, so y minus 4, y plus 4. Okay, let's change this division sign to a times. Looking at the bottom here, y plus 4, there's nothing you can do there. 2y minus 4, they got a GCF, pull out that GCF. So I end up with this, okay? So remember this y plus 4 and the 2y minus 4, they switch places because remember I got to do the reciprocal. So remember you're always going to take the reciprocal of the thing directly to the right, okay? So let's go ahead and cancel what we can. So let's see, y plus 4s can go away. Y minus 2s can go away. And I think that's it. So what do I have left over? On the top, the only thing I have left over is a y plus 5. And on the bottom, I have a y minus 4 times 2. Just so that it looks prettier, let's put the 2 on the outside. And then leave that as y minus 4. Okay. So you don't have to do anything more with this. Like you don't have to distribute that 2 back in. This is fine the way it is. And that's final answer for that. Okay, let's go and do 2 more examples here, and then we should be good. So, factor. I think we actually just did this one, didn't we? Did we just factor that one? This x squared plus 3x minus 10, I think we did in number 3, except we used y. So, let's go ahead and do that. So remember, check all four places, the two denominators and the two numerators, and factor if you can. So like I said, this top one we just did in number 3, except that the variable was y, and we found out that, so if you don't believe me, here's that one. We found out that it equaled, where are we here? Y plus 5, y minus 2 is what we got. Okay, so x squared plus 3x minus 10, we found out from the last example, is y plus 5, y minus 2, or in this case x, because we're using x. Sorry. So this problem is an x, not a y, so x plus 5, x minus 2. Okay, looking at the bottom of the fraction, could be factored. They have a GCF of what? They both have a GCF of 2. Okay, so pull out the 2, what's left is x plus 3. Change this division sign to times. Okay, remember, since we changed it to times, these two guys are going to end up switching places. So let's look at this one here. X squared minus x minus 12. So 1 and 1, maybe 4 and 3. There's 3. There's 4. If you subtract them, yep, you definitely get the middle number. So remember, because the minus sign is first, because you have a minus sign first, and it's a minus sign second, we're going to have opposite signs. So one's going to be a minus, one's going to be a plus, okay? Again, because we have a minus sign in the second spot, okay? And then, because this first sign is a minus, the bigger product is going to get that. So following the arrows is the 1 times 3 bigger, or the 1 times 4 bigger. 1 times 3 or 1 times 4. 1 times 4 is bigger, so I follow that arrow right at the tip there. It gets the minus because this first sign's a minus, which means this has to be a plus. Remember, when you group them going across. So it becomes y minus 4, x plus 3, and then on the other part of the fraction, we got a difference of 2 squares again, which looks like that. Okay. Let's cancel what we can. So I see an x minus 2 here, and an x minus 2 there, x plus 3 there, x plus 3 there. And so let's just go ahead and put these together. This should be an x here. Okay, so on the top I have an x plus 5 left there, and an x minus 4. I have a 2 here, and then an x plus 2. And that's all we can do. Okay, so final answer for this is x plus 5 times x minus 4 all over 2 times x plus 2. Okay. Alright. So factor, we gotta be good factors. Let's go to our last one, and the reason why I'm throwing it in is because I have 3 fractions this time, and I just want to show you how to do this. So looking at this, my gut reaction, maybe before we keep change flip, is let's fix that exponent. So remember that little 3, it's going to go to the a and to the b. So first fraction stays the same. Second fraction stays the same. I'm going to leave that division there until we're done distributing that exponent. So I really have, when I distribute a to the third, b to the third. Okay, and remember what my trick for you was that the only thing that's going to flip is the thing directly to the right of the fraction. So the thing directly to the right of the fraction is this guy. Okay, so the a squared over b stays like before, 2a over b stays, but then this is the one that's going to change. So change that division sign to times, and then the b to the third is going to move to the top, and the a to the third is going to move to the top. So let's finish this out. Remember, to cancel stuff out, it has to be a top-bottom combination. So if you want to cancel something from fraction 3 with the bottom of fraction 1, that's fine, even though you're skipping over like that, as long as it's top-bottom. Okay, so like looking at this, I see this a squared I could cancel out. maybe with this a to the third. And so if I do that, the a squared a to the third is going to leave at least one more a there. Okay, this b to the third can cancel out with this b, and I'm left with a b to the second. And I can actually go one more round of canceling here. So looking at the a's, I have an a right here and 2a right there. Let's cancel those a's out, leaving just a number 2 right there. I'm going to circle it so we don't forget it's there. B squared, I still have one more b on the bottom here, so let's cancel that out. And so what do I have left? I'm circling that b there. So on the top I have that 2. I still have that b right there, that one b left over, and on the bottom, oh, nothing. There's nothing left there, so I have only 2b as a final answer. Okay, so there's 3 fractions. What I wanted to show you again was just to see that you can do a top-bottom combination even if it's skipping over a fraction, as long as it's a top and bottom cancellation. And then also just showing you that the dividing, if there's more than one fraction or more than 2 fractions, you reciprocal only the thing to the right of the division sign. Okay, so that's it. The toughest part of this again is probably just the factoring and knowing how to factor and when is appropriate. And so practice with that. Hopefully it's getting a little bit easier though, since we've been doing it for a couple of or for a while. Okay, so that's it.